Welcome to Is It Covered, where we break down real stories and answer the big question, is it covered? Hosted by father and son duo Bruce and Brian Chapman of the Chapman Insurance Agency. This podcast will help you navigate the world of insurance with stories, tips, and answers that really matter. From personal to commercial coverage, we've got you covered. Now, let's get started.
So, welcome to another exciting podcast episode of Is It Covered, where Bruce Chapman and Brian Chapman discuss claims that may or may not be covered. And then we try to render a verdict at the end.
There you go.
Keep in mind that all these items are claims that have either happened or may happen, and that not every claim is covered, and that it's always important to touch base with your own insurance agent to discuss things, disclose things, and make sure that they're covered.
Absolutely.
So today's episode is all about Airbnb, Vrbo.
Oh, yeah. Popular.
And what happens, like you rent your house out, what happens if someone trashes it?
Yeah.
Tell us a story, Brian.
Well, so this one's kind of interesting because I do have a buddy of mine that rented out his apartment for an Airbnb. He lived in Rochester, kind of close to downtown. So, you know, he had a girlfriend at the time, so he was kind of spending time with her, and he would rent out his apartment for an Airbnb. Mm-hmm. Well, he said most of the time it was going good, but he had this one story that he had rented the apartment out to a couple. They seemed very nice, did all the vetting. They had a good review on Airbnb. So he, you know, lets them stay there for the 2 nights. I think there was something going on in the city. He might have a concert or something. And then he comes back and, you know, he got a note from say everything went well. Well, it didn't go well.
Not so good.
No.
Okay.
He came home to pretty much all of his pots and pans had been used and burnt. His bathroom had been destroyed. There was holes in the wall. The towel hanger had been ripped down.
He must have cooked something bad.
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah.
There was other various holes in the living room. Wow. There was stains all over the floor. I mean, essentially his apartment had just been trashed by these folks.
Cow. You hear those stories quite often.
Yeah, more often now. I know that it's, you know, you rent your Airbnb out and it ends up potentially being a party there. I know you can vet for that, but, you know, you end up having 25, 30, 50 people. It gets out of control and you can't, you know, you end up with some damage to your home.
So as with anything in insurance, Airbnb is a risk, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So he asked me, he said, you know, I've got renter's insurance or, you know, most of these folks have homeowner's insurance. So if this happens, if I rent out my home to Airbnb and it's destroyed, how does insurance respond to something like that?
Well, that's a really good question. So first of all, you want to know that whether you have coverage to rent your house out for an Airbnb. So as we say all the time, always a good idea to check with your agent to say, hey, this is my new idea. This is how I'm going to be making a lot of money. And is it going to be covered by my insurance? So that's step number one, to make sure you actually have coverage.
Yeah. And to disclose that when you're telling people, hey, I have my primary home, but I also rent this out on a short-term basis, because that is a bit, you don't want to leave that as a loophole.
No way.
And you need to disclose that.
Absolutely. Now, some companies, their homeowners policies will say, no problem, we'll allow up to X number of days to do that. If you go beyond that, then you might have to have a commercial policy or maybe a landlord-type policy for that. But by and large, insurance companies are kind of onto this. They're good with it. You can definitely find markets that'll do that.
So if you have a policy written correctly and something happens where your home is damaged from an Airbnb rental, you could turn that in as like a property damage claim?
I would say step number one is to make sure, yes, that you do have that. And then you could turn that in as a property damage claim, vandalism. I think I don't know how Airbnb responds to that. You've done a little research on that, correct?
From my understanding, a very surface level understanding is that Airbnb does have what they call like a host guarantee. But from my understanding, it's not necessarily insurance, because it doesn't cover, like, you know, if your cash is stolen,
right.
There's no personal liability on there, if you had any collectibles that were damaged. But I would highly recommend that if you do Airbnb to look into all the wording and everything that they do offer, because there might be some overlap and small amounts of coverage there as well.
Sure.
But,
or VRBO.
Any of those short-term rentals.
You know, too, that kind of brings up the question, what about liability? What if someone did something that caused maybe one of the guests to get hurt or a neighbor or something? I think that's another good reason to make sure that you have everything disclosed because, there's some issues there with liability.
Oh, absolutely.
And so, and this is kind of would your insurance company pay for the liability that your guest did?
That's a good question. That would be, you'd have to talk through with the adjuster or something on a claim with that. Yeah,
exactly. Because it's really not your fault.
Right.
Well,
exactly.
it could be though. Maybe you had a giant hole in the middle of your living room you covered with a rug and someone broke their leg. That's a problem.
That's a problem. Yep.
Isn't it fun thinking about claim things?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess by and large, on a surface level or a quick overview, I mean, is if my home's destroyed by an Airbnb guest, am I covered?
I would say it would be a vandalism coverage subject to your deductible. I've seen this on actual apartments that have been rented out. And I would say that aspect of it, provided you had the right coverage, would be covered.
Nice. Okay, good. Awesome. Well, that wraps it up for this segment. As always, we do encourage people to bring us new ideas, exciting claim ideas, give us some information on a claim that you've experienced, whether it's a mundane or not. We'd like to dig into those and present it potentially in our next episode.
And they can email those to Brian at jdchapmaninc.com.
Yep, exactly.
Make sure you put the little ink at the end, inc.com. Well, thank you very much for paying attention for a few minutes, and we'll see you next time.
Perfect. Sounds good.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Is It Covered podcast. To learn more about how J.D. Chapman can assist you with all your insurance needs, please visit our website at jdchapmaninc.com or call us at 315-986-4062. J.D. Chapman, we've got you covered. This podcast provides general information only. It does not offer or bind insurance coverage. Coverage cannot be changed or confirmed through this podcast, email, voicemail, or fax. Insurance only takes effect once confirmed by a licensed agent. For specific coverage details, please call us at 315-986-4062. All coverages are subject to the terms, conditions, and exclusions of the issued policy, which may vary by state. This podcast does not provide legal, tax, or financial advice. Please consult a professional for those needs. Links to other sites are provided for convenience. We don't control or endorse their content. Any claims scenarios discussed are hypothetical. Coverage decisions depend on the specifics of each case.